republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let everybody know that meeting is being recorded and broadcast live and rebroadcast on local cable television, otherwise known as PCAP. We're just going to go around and start with you, Jamie, to just introduce yourself to ensure we have a forum.
Jamie Stebbins.
Mark Lamb.
I'm Dottie Bolgenetti.
I'm Craig Barger.
And Jen Stacy, for the record, is not able to be here tonight. We have our Assistant Town Administrator, Michael Blanchard, and our Executive Assistant, Elizabeth Hay, at the table as well. So thanks for being here tonight. The first item that we have under announcements and proclamations is District Attorney Thomas Quinn. He's we're still waiting for him to get here because he's a few minutes late. So we're going to jump right past that and go into action discussion 3, which is an acceptance of a gift to the police department from the Richard Tucker Memorial Fund. So in our packet, we have a letter which comes with a memo from Chief Boone saying that the department received a check in the amount of $500 from the Richard Tucker Memorial Fund. The memo in the check indicates that the funds are to be used for equipment only. And so there's also a note of thanks from Chief Boone to the family. Their son is a veteran, and this was in his memory. So we want to show our gratitude to the Tucker family for their very generous donation to the police. So we need to vote to accept that. If somebody would like to make a motion on a second.
So moved.
Second.
That's Barger and Lamb. All in favor? Unanimous. Excellent. Next, should we wait for the chief to come back? Can we skip that one?
We can. I'll defer to you. This is just part of the annual replacement process for 3 cruisers.
All right.
It was approved at special town meeting November 14th. So the funding is available and pretty standard. Recommends your approval.
Okay, so this is for okay, great. So this is for 3 marked 2023 Dodge Durango vehicles, and the contract price to be paid is $179,840.91, and the contract would go to MHQ.
Are these
Do you know if these are outfitted, Michael?
I believe. Give me 1 second.
I only asked for continuity and asked the same question with the fire department. So be fair.
Yeah, this came up and I just don't remember the answer.
I mean, it sounds like they are.
Yep. Just pulled it over. Yes. So these are. Yes, these are outfitted for a police vehicle specification. Yes.
That's everything.
Okay. So what's any other questions? Would somebody like to make a motion to award POL 2023-02 to MHQ in an amount not to exceed $180,000?
So moved, Barger.
Second, Lamb.
Barger and Lamb, all in favor? Unanimous. Okay. What else we can do next quickly?
Wendy's here for number 7.
Why don't we do that? Wendy, you want to come up for item 7? So this is a discussion and vote for an award of the fiscal year 22 financial audit contract to Markham LLP doing business as Melanson. Thanks for being here, Wendy.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so this contract would be for the audit for the fiscal 22 year, which just ended. And the audit committee voted earlier to award the contract to Melanson. Melanson is now merged with Markham LLP. Markham is a really, really large firm. They're a great complement to each other. Melanson has a lot of experience in government and nonprofits. So they will complement Markham's line of services that they provide. They're a very, very large firm. I think they're a national firm. I think were ranked around like the 15th largest accounting firm in terms of revenue in 2021. And they'll be able to provide Melanson with more resources as well. So it's a good match. The audit committee voted to award the contract for 1 year, and then this spring we will go out for a 3-year contract. We'll solicit quotes for that.
Okay, so Mark, you're on the audit committee, right?
I am.
Do you have anything to add or any comments?
Summed it up pretty well. It was a good discussion, to go for this 1 year, this year, and then next year, go for it.
So I know that in the past you have switched the people that are working on it so that you don't have the same person for, to get a fresh objective on it. Does that it still carry through with this new relationship?
It will probably change in the 3-year contract. For this next year, it would be the same principal, the same partner.
Okay.
But they will most likely swap out staff for the next 3-year contract.
All right.
I know it won't be, I don't know if it will be the first year, but definitely not all 3 years would be the same people.
Okay, excellent. Any other comments, questions, Jamie?
No, thank you, Wendy.
Mark, you're all set? Okay.
Thank you, Wendy.
All right, if somebody would like to make a motion to award fiscal year 22 financial audit contract to Markham LLP doing business as Melanson.
So moved, Roger.
Second, ma'am.
Bodger and Lamb, all in favor? Unanimous. Excellent. Thanks,
Thank
Wendy. So we're going to go back to item 1, District Attorney Thomas Quinn. Thank you for being here tonight. We'd love for you and the chief to come up to the table. Chief Boone, if you'd like to just do a brief introduction.
Yes, Keith Boone, the police chief. I'm here with newly re-elected District Attorney Thomas Quinn, Bristol County. I'd just like to thank him for coming tonight. He's been a great resource for all of us in the county, but specifically for Easton Police Department with grant funding. And I just want to thank you again for doing this today.
Well, thank you, Chief, and thanks, members of the board of selectmen, the opportunity to speak here tonight. How are you? I just wanted to touch on a few things that my administration has been doing. I've been the district attorney for 8 years. I was reelected for a 3rd term in September and November. I serve at the pleasure of the people and take that seriously. I've tried to be the district attorney for all of Bristol County. One of my important initiatives, starting with goes back to when I was a young prosecutor almost 35 years ago, and when I was the first district attorney for 8 years, and then the district attorney was domestic violence issues. Seeing, primarily women abused by people always bothered me. So we've instituted a number of initiatives. First and foremost, starting with prosecution. It is important, if the evidence permits, to hold people accountable for hurting primarily women, but there are other instances of it also, and children. It has a great significant negative impact on families and the community when domestic violence occurs. It leaves lifelong scars on people. We have a prosecutor, Courtney Cahill, who has been involved in domestic violence for a number of years, who heads the unit. We've, again, first and foremost, prosecuting these cases successfully. Years ago, a lot of the cases were dismissed. They're difficult to prosecute because in many instances, you don't get full, if any, cooperation from people, which is unfortunate. But we've instituted protocols to go forward and have made great strides. We have people in each court, prosecutors assigned to review cases. We have her in charge of it. And support to victims of domestic violence. We interact with community agencies in this area. There's New Hope that covers this part of the county, the Women's Center in Bedford, among others, Star and Fall River. We've Courtney Cahill from my office has applied for a grant for civilian police advocates, which I think is really important. They work with departments. I know Easton is the beneficiary of one. They review all police reports that come in, because I think approximately half of all domestic violence complaints do not result in charges. But it's important to provide assistance to victims, and I think that's been very successful. Again, we took the initiative, and that is available to all of the county. These are people who are civilian advocates in the police stations, separate from our office, but working under a grant that we applied for to assist the police and victims with these types of complaints. Actually, White Ribbon Campaign in March, if it's going to happen with students. It was an assembly that I've appeared at and spoken to. I think last year it was taped. I'm sure, I know I taped it, I'm sure it was last year, so that's important for males to make a pledge that they aren't going to be involved in that type of behavior. I think we participate in training. So again, this taking initiative, prosecution is very important, but these other aspects to it provide support to victims and the police. We also are starting we're gonna have a training in March for trauma, trauma related to people making complaints. What are the symptoms of trauma? So we're putting that training on. And again, I mentioned the White Ribbon Campaign. With respect, there's a program called HEART, which are high-risk offenders, that we evaluate individuals who are repeat offenders throughout the county and focus on their behavior, monitor them, and then if they do reoffend, for their priority prosecutions when they come into court. We assign prosecutors to that particular group, and also an advocate. All county police departments, along with staff from the clerk's office, DA's office, probation, parole, sheriff's department, battery intervention programs, legal services are all involved in this. I believe that Michelle Franey from the department is part of that team. Again, high-risk offenders, you know, that you focus on. We also, I believe, have interns from Stonehill in your jurisdiction that participate through a victimology class to get some experience in that area. So that's been an important issue to me, and I think just as some examples, last year, 2022, we have approximately 380 HEART offenders. These are high risk with offenders who come into court with open cases. So we made a priority of prosecuting those people, holding them accountable in court based on their record and the facts and circumstances. But that type of behavior just can never be accepted and has to be dealt with. I'm very proud of how we've dealt with it. Another thing we've done, we applied for a grant for police on body cameras. That is obviously an issue now throughout the country and in the state. Easton has been a recipient of that grant. I think we received approximately over $550,000 in funding. It's 562 total grant. A number of departments applied. So when issues with respect to collective bargaining are worked out, we have funds to assist them in purchasing the equipment when it gets to that point. So we're trying to be proactive in that area. In addition, one of my, I think, important initiatives during the past years, I've created and focused on elder abuse, both financially and physically, but in particular, financial elder fraud. It's rampant throughout the country. Seniors who have given so much to our communities deserve to be protected as best we can. So I've not only discussed the issue, but I think done something about it. I've been to every senior center and other agencies multiple times, but at least once throughout the county. I was here at Easton in the summer and want to come back soon. Because there's two aspects to it. There is prosecution, but prevention is critical. It's the scam artists, sadly, family members at times, the seniors are inundated, isolated in some cases. and inundated with calls of people trying to take advantage of them. So we've put resources into it. I created a unit. I have a person overseeing the prosecution of this case, is very good and experienced. And we brought charges and in many cases that previously would not have been brought. But even more important, I personally am going out to spread the message of prevention, because you may get involved in a situation where your money is taken. The chances are, if it's a scam, you'll never get it back unless you go into someone's door and unidentified. So if you can prevent it, that's critical. And this also give our seniors a sense that they're valued, which they obviously are, but that we're doing something about it. I'm very proud of we started an annual celebration of seniors in June. It was off for a couple of years for COVID, but we had several hundred people attend from around the county. And the number of vendors there providing services, opportunity services, information to seniors. But again, speakers, me saying prevention, we care about you. But I think it's been very successful. It's important as a prosecutor to certainly prosecute people, but to be fair. I try to be fair and balanced in how I handle things, but the public has to be protected from our perspective, from violent offenders and repeat criminals. On the other hand, you have to respond appropriately to people. People do make mistakes, and as we all have in our lives, so have to be responsible for that, which I have. So I've been about trying to do the job the best I can. Tried to have a good relationship with law enforcement. As I said, the entire county is important to me. I actually have been up here a number of times, a little tough time with the snow, but that's important to me. And I again, I'm very pleased that you gave me the opportunity to speak. But that's sort of an outline of what I've been doing, focusing on elderly affairs, but competent prosecution of cases. They're all, we're dealing with, the dark side of things in many respects. And I think I've tried to focus the staff on, again, being fair, but holding people accountable. We've been set back with COVID, obviously that a lot of people impacted by that. But we've really pushed cases forward. The staff has been good. We really resumed jury trials, I think it was August of not last year, 21. About 15 months ago, made a lot of progress. A number of homicide cases have been prosecuted, which is unheard of, the number in that amount of time in Bristol County. But there's a lot of other cases out there: child abuse, sexual assault, domestic violence, that the ability to move those cases through the system has been severely impeded or impacted by COVID. So again, this is my third term. It's an honor to serve on behalf of the people of Bristol County. I think I've tried to be about doing the job the best I can. That's my agenda. We have a big county to cover, Bristol County. And I think the work that we've done through law enforcement and victims, I think is something that I'm proud of and hope to continue.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to come up here. Sometimes we can feel that in Bristol County, we're kind of on the edge and we're not a big city. I know that you've been very involved in the work that the police do, and I have a couple of other comments, but I want to start with Craig because I know you're kind of you've got a relationship and we're in the same field.
Yeah, I've known the Quinn family since 1980 when Tom's dad was a juvenile court judge down in Fall River, New Bedford. And I've very much appreciated all the efforts that you've made and the support that you've provided to the police and to members of the community. So I thank you for coming up, Tom. It's nice to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you again for the invitation.
Mark?
Thank you for being here. Thank you for advocating for seniors, for these grants. This is a step in the right direction in everything you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy?
Yeah, and DA Quinn, thank you for coming. Quick question on the elder abuse in the form of fraud. I know these relationships often from overseas get cultivated, right? And they suck people in, and I feel awful for the people that are, subject to these crimes. because they don't know that they're dealing with someone who's in a foreign country who's trying to take advantage of them. Are we having any success because I feel like if they're in a foreign country, that's got to make it really difficult for you once you figured out where that IP address is ultimately originating from. What are we having any success in dealing with this?
In terms of prosecuting the case, if somebody's come from overseas and there's overseas interaction, if anything, that would be a matter for the federal government because of jurisdiction. But the real key is, and I've been doing it more, I think, intently in the last 8 or 9 months, they just, whether it's seniors or other, you cannot engage these people on the phone. It's very simple. It's on the phone or on the computer. I mean, it's one thing if you are being scammed. I think I was in Easton probably 7 years ago. I think I was getting gas, at that Cumberland Farms or a gas station across the street. And I think my card got swiped. It was a process, they were wanting a credit card. So they go and skim the gas station. Now that's different. You're subject to fraud. You're not responsible. But if you're responding to a phone call, it could be a romance scam, which is more prominent. People are lonely. And I've seen and heard of that firsthand in a number of ways. People start giving money. It seems absurd, but however it starts, and you don't know what state of life people are in. So you're not going to successfully prosecute those types of cases unless somebody's caught on tape. These people have numbers that are quickly blocked and eliminated. We've had our state police unit look into some of these cases, but to trace these numbers are very difficult. So it sounds simple, but I said to them repeatedly, if you don't know who's calling you on the phone, don't answer the phone. I don't. Now, in fairness, you're in your own home, in your own business, it's snowing today, you're kind of hanging out, I'll answer the phone. You have every right to do that, and many of our seniors are respectful, good people, not that others aren't. They don't want to hang up on somebody, but prevention is the key because the prosecutions are difficult. You can prosecute cases in which maybe a known person is taking money locally, whether it's a contractor or in some cases a family member, but that's very difficult if, for someone to go against a family member. But I think we've been successful in recouping money, not necessarily from overseas, because we won't get it, but in prosecutions that have been brought. And I'm very pleased with it. It's a monumental task because if you look at what's the number of fraud, people calling all the time, you can't even answer the phone. Initially, a big scam before was the IRS. I got a few calls, but I'll give you my late father, who he called up, they had called him, and I don't know what, he didn't get involved giving money, but I told him exactly what to do. That you say the IRS does not call by phone. I think Medicare is going to call you up personally and say you got to go pay the bill. So I called up myself as I was driving down the highway and said, "This is the IRS. You're going to be arrested if you don't pay $1,000." And he, to his credit, he's receipts, but gave the response. I told him the IRS does not call by phone, and hung up. Now that it is funny.
It's a good form of prevention, though, right? You're training. You're training.
I'm training. I'm calling, but because there was another example that I've used that about are you going to catch anybody? This is only the way you're going to catch people with a few, except by the phone, no, because I'm setting up shop wherever. Dunkin' Donuts. I got the phone. I make the calls. They're hitting on people because they wouldn't be doing it. They move on to another phone the next day. So if you tried to get the phone, but there was about 5 or 6 years ago in Florida, reading an article which was there's a grandparent scam where they call and say your grandchild has been arrested. You need to get this person out right away. If you want to get them out, you bring 1,000, 10,000, whatever the amount of money it is. That startles people though, because it's really a psychological game when you start, the grandparents at home a lot, and some are a little more cerebral. They say, wait a second, they call up the spouse, and of course the grandchild is there. But many people have been fleeced by millions on that scam.
That happened to my mother when my son was just leaving for the Navy. And she said in her head, she knew that this wasn't true because he was in the Navy, but just the thought of it, it hurts your perception when you're older. And she started imagining like, what if it is him? And and we had talked about all these different scenarios, but it was really, really upsetting to her, even though she knew it was a scam.
Because she's a caring, loving grandparent, but that's why they do it. And that's why I've said to them repeatedly, the discipline and the prevention. I'm speaking this past year, community like this. Oh, yes, somebody gave 25 grand and $5,000 increments to a scam artist over the grandchild. I was in another community in this county where a woman raised her hand, and they raise their hand often, just like you're saying. Now she may not have done it. It was only 1,000 in this case, which is still a lot of money. But when she went to CVS to get the money order, she was crying. So, and the work was very good. What's the matter? And she said, no, don't do this. It's a scam. But those are only a few examples of it being stopped. In the case I was representing in Florida, grandparent scam, in jail, whatever they said, 5 grand, gave it. It's over now. They're never going to get the money back, except in this case, the thief, who was a former thief too, no surprise, showed up with a girlfriend. They lived together. And he says, where'd you get that money? Knowing that he is a thief and doesn't work. And she might have been mad or sworn. She turned him into the police. Now, that's kind of funny and but that's not going to happen often. That's just an example of, because who's going to, usually they'd be partaking in the proceeds. So I think the key is prevention and discipline, and I feel very invigorated by getting that message out again. I go to these places personally throughout the county. It's been tough with COVID. That's another thing, been shut down for 2 years. It's opened up now, going back to last year. But I even feel more energized because when appropriate, yes. And as I said, we prosecuted cases, recouped a lot of money, but just providing advice and consultation to people. And I encourage people to call our office if they have questions. But once you part with the money, that's the end of it generally, especially if it's overseas. And again, there are legions of stories of people losing a lot of money through grandparent scam, IRS, because it is that psychological coercion, just like you said. I feel bad about it because it's jolting, right? I mean, that's what it's designed to do. All of a sudden, your grandson, I don't think so. And if you're caught off guard, now if you're with your spouse, they might talk you out of it. But a lot of people, if you're by yourself, you don't have that support. So, what I feel good about is I take an action about the problem. It's been going on now for over 7, after a few months in, I started the elder fraud unit. Have the right person there, because prosecuting these cases are not easy. There's significant discovery. It's not just elder fraud, it's also some financial crimes too that are prosecuted, but they're very labor intensive with paperwork and proof, which, a lot of people don't, it's tough to really apply yourself and analyze the case properly. But in the end, if you're giving money over the phone, credit, computer, you don't know what it's going to be on. So discipline by not participating in it. If it's a known, you want to give money to obviously a known entity, the St. Jude's, I donated to it. That's legitimate, I believe, but I mean, those types of things. And people take one on an email address and change one letter, and all of a sudden they get to you. So, it's a long answer, but it's really what's going on, I think, because it's so prevalent and so many of our seniors are impacted to it. But I will say this, and I also recently, right before Christmas, had was in Norton, had a luncheon for them, and prevention luncheon, provided lunch, which I did, and talked about prevention both here and in Bedford, and we're going to continue to do that. But I can't tell them enough. It's really about prevention, because when the money's gone, it's gone. And if I get taken for 100, I wouldn't like it, right? 50. How about 5,000?
Right.
So I'm proud of it. I think they've been very receptive towards it too, the seniors, and that's important because I think the effort and resources we put into it is a little unique, but it's going to continue, and I'm proud of that.
Thank you.
Well, I don't want to keep you all night, but there are 2 things that you didn't mention that I just do want to call out. one of the things is your work with Substance Abuse Coalition. So I'm the vice chair of Easton Wings of Hope, the Substance Coalition
Yes.
here. We work with April from your
Yes.
office. And she's been wonderful, and your office has been wonderful, supporting the region and Easton in particular with prevention. So I want to thank you for that. And also, I believe that you had started to look at some cold case evidence and have some really great success going back and trying to solve and prosecute old cold cases using new DNA technology.
I think did I speak to you at one of the elections? I think, yeah, about that. I think it was in the spring. I think we might have chatted. Yeah, the cold cases, that's been one of the initiatives. I certainly have as much time as you like, but it comes really into two areas. There's unsolved homicides going back 50 years. We've reviewed almost every homicide in that area, and we brought charges in several cases. I won't get into it, but I'm just talking about one on the way up here. What a coincidence. I think that's been important, but it takes time and dedication, which we've had. Another thing that I've done and the office has done, which again is important because it at one point shows kind of a failure or negligence of government. When a woman is sexually assaulted, in most cases, she consents to a examination at the hospital to see if there's evidence from a sexual assault that can be preserved and used in the prosecution if an assailant is identified. So going back a number of years, and actually, I'll get to that in a moment, we're going back 25 or 30 years. So during the investigation of a cold case murder, homicide in New Bedford, we came to learn that rape kits, which they're called, the sexual assault evidence kits, when they're processed, very demeaning and intrusive procedure after a obviously very traumatic event, assault, were not fully tested by the state lab. And that came about because an individual was accused of rape in New Bedford in the late 90s and identified, say it's not me, but Tom Quinn, victim went to Portugal, the prosecution stopped. The problem was at that time, the rape kit was not fully tested. A few years later, there's a murder in New Bedford. They fully process the evidence. It goes into the national database, which could connect to something potentially, right? You'll see where I'm going in a second. What wasn't tested? The rape kit, right? A few years later, Tennessee, person's arrested, forced to give a sample on a low-level offense. What do you think that hits to? Murder. So it was the same person who did the rape, who was accused, he was named, but because that evidence wasn't processed, if it had been fully entered into the database, when he committed the murder, it would have hit to him sooner. So we had to wait till Tennessee, but it shows important. Another issue we're pushing is DNA collection, because there are thousands of people who owe DNA in the state who have not provided it. But the rape kits were not. So long story short, we had over 1,200 rape kits in our county that were not fully tested. Examined, but not enough to put into a database if there's sufficient evidence. Applied for a grant, wrote the application, obtained it, and we now are either finished now or this month, the testing of all those rape kits. They resulted in charges in several cases, 5 cases. But the bottom line is it should have been done. The victims deserved it, society deserved it, saw a problem, did something about it. A lot of work to it, not glamour. Had to get a grant, had to staff people. It was difficult in the beginning with the lab because of COVID and get resources, you know, the often, whatever the reasons are that it can't be done, should have been done because of our initiative. They've been, you know, investigative report of presentations that have resulted in the legislature changing the law. One of the cold cases that was solved was in this town. Part of it, brutal rape of a woman in Easton, late 90s. I won't get other than saying who was cleaning at night. This individual was a predator. I've seen a lot in my career. This individual, this kid, one of the worst I've ever seen. Turned out there were 4 unsolved rapes committed. Easton, Taunton, East Bridgewater, and Quincy at about the same time. No suspect. one of the retired detectives here, who I worked with on a case a lot before, Bill Fulcher, had been involved in the case, retired. But you don't forget those cases. And I authorized cost to have familial DNA done, California. It was done, it was a link. Led to, we had to investigate, led back to a suspect who was living in this area, who was a sexual deviant, let's just say. The record had sexual offenses, had to go provide a sample that would put him, at the time, was considered an offense, would provide a DNA sample that would have linked him to those cases. So he fled in early 2000, and through a lengthy investigation, tracing, we tracked him down in Maine and apprehended him. Got full DNA testing, because we're trying to fight that too. We were using it as this male DNA, which we use for investigating. And eventually it was a complete match. 4 cases with this individual, things I didn't keep. Again, one in Easton. And I met with the victims in court, and again, brutal. You 6-10 o'clock at night, you're doing your cleaning, all of a sudden walking around the Bristol Plymouth track the other day at noontime on a Sunday in broad daylight, grabbed off the track. And so the person was not apprehended, but that just shows, to collaborative effort, but not giving up on it. But there's an unsolved case. If no other case is solved, that would be satisfactory, because it was that bad. But I think that's just an idea of putting the effort and energy into those cases, not giving up on them. I'm not promising we're going to solve all the cases. We'll do the best we can, but we're retesting evidence. And again, the Rape Kit initiative, that should have been done. So as of, say, January 1st, a few weeks ago, all of this is Bristol County, all of those sexual assault kits will be tested and processed. Again, we've had charges in approximately 5 of the cases, attempting to hold people accountable. And it hopefully instills some confidence in the system that this was not done, but we have righted that, because it was, to me, the right thing to do. But again, not easy. You've got to put resources, hire people on the grant. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because we have put quite a bit of effort into that. The unsolved cases. Easton is touched by the one I just talked about, as of other communities, and that's what we're trying to do. Professional investigative work, giving the extra effort, and another issue I think that was mentioned or was touched on with this DNA testing. A number of people in the state who will DNA legally. If I'm convicted of a certain crime, I'm supposed to give DNA, because the system is inadequate. You've got people out there that haven't provided DNA, which could link them to a case potentially. So
is that a warrant process? Is there then a warrant?
It's a very good question. We've taken the position, you have a legal obligation to provide DNA. We have applied for warrants in a number of cases. That's through the clerk's office, and they issue what they don't. Going back 3 years ago, this is again with respect to DNA collection. What we did was we get a list of all the people that owe DNA in our county. So let's say there were 1,200-ish or more, which is a lot statewide. It's unclear what the number is. Say it's 15,000. Had to do a spreadsheet. Some people were deceased, so you take them off the list. Although getting a sample would be helpful, because theoretically somebody could still be connected, but they're deceased. Some have moved out of county, out of state. And I was just talking about this today, right before I left for here. We're focusing on, we need to focus on that, but through work, right before COVID, we had teams of police go out and try to track down some of these people locally with the local departments. And we obtained some people, and they would potentially, most likely in almost every case, sir, you owe DNA, and then provide DNA, and that'll end it. So they did. But that's difficult, go like not house to house, but individual by individual, and they're spread out through the country, through the state. So But we brought our number way down. We've got organized, I think it was just told today, it's potentially around 550. That's in the county for people that owe. So we're going to again, but we started doing this right before COVID. Then people couldn't go out, investigators to go do this, which obviously was understandable. So we made a few operations right before COVID, which now is approaching 3 years. And it's kind of been on hold. We've been able to identify people who are in the court process who owe DNA. So it's much simpler if it's, I'm in, got a pending case again, they identify me, approach the person in court, or a warrant, and say, bring it before the court, say this person owes DNA, they consent, it's taken. I've trained and spent money on training a lot of departments. I think Easton may have participated in it, and I'm going to do more. I'm not waiting for the bureaucracy to take over. I've taken funds, bought test kits, trained detectives and other officers, so that they can do it. Like, for example, if appropriate booking, somebody comes in, they say they owe DNA. If there was somebody available, they could take it, or if we send a state trooper over to court, if need be, to take it. This is, an appropriate sample. It's nothing, it's lawful, it's pursuant to law, and it's submitted to this CODIS unit, which is an act database. And if it's put into the database, and it fits certain criteria, and that's how you get these cold case hits. It's going to be primarily homicides. You get house breaks, a lot of them, if they leave a print, cut themselves, but nobody apprehended, they get it. We successfully crossed with a lot of those cases because of I break into a house, I cut myself, they take the DNA. If I'm not in the system, it wouldn't matter. If I am in the system, it's going to hit. And again, the hit is very high probability. And also sexual assault. So it's some information, but I think it's just elaborating on what we're trying to do. And there's another example. Again, I'm not trying to be critical, but but there's a problem, right? The law says you're convicted of these offenses, you need to submit a database. It may not be their fault. In some cases, nobody's coming after them. On the other hand, you're still under continued duty to do it. So it's trying to do those things that that should have been done. Again, it takes effort and focus, but we've been doing those things. And I think it's made a difference on a number of fronts during the past 8 years.
Well, I think the organizational self-reflection to look that these are some things that we need to fix, and the willingness and the ability to go and fix them is really important. This is really a heavy topic. We don't usually have anything like this at a select board meeting, but I think it's important for the people in our town to really understand personally. That's why I asked you a lot of questions when I saw you. I really wasn't sure what the DA's office did, only the part that I was connected with for substance use. And we really appreciate you taking the time to come up here on a snowy night and talk about this. And I'm sure the whole community, but particularly our seniors, for all the work that you do to help keep them safe.
Well, again, I appreciate the opportunity to come up here, and I think that you make a good point about the DA's office. Our primary job is to prosecute cases, but we have community programs we're involved in, as you mentioned, on substance abuse and elder abuse, and other initiatives. So we're trying to balance, appropriate prosecution, but also having an impact in the community. And certainly, if you have any need or questions or concerns about things, feel free to contact my office, and I'd be happy to come up here again on any issue.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you very much.
You too. Appreciate it. Take care.
And Chief Boone, while you were out, we voted on your 2 items, so you can.
Thank you.
Drive safely.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks.
So we're gonna go back to our timed public hearing at 6:30. Selectman Bodger, if you'd like to read the public hearing notice.
Select Board of Easton, as licensing authorities, will hold a public hearing in the Colleen A. Corona Boardroom, 136 Elm Street, Easton, Mass, on Monday, January 23rd, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. to consider an act on the application of Tree Laxmi Corporation doing business as Scott's Fine Wines and Spirits for a change of location of a section 15 off premises all alcohol beverage license from 669 Washington Street, Easton to 646 Washington Street, Easton, Mass, in accordance with plans on file at the Select Board's office.
Okay, great. Attorney Cassavant, if you'd like to come up with your clients. If you just want to introduce yourself and just give us kind of an overview, Selectman Barger did a pretty good job, but.
Thank you. Actually, Attorney Greg Fleming, Attorney Cass.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. From the firm of Marioni Johnson Uni on behalf of the applicant. Nick Dixon from the applicant is here today in case the board has any follow-up questions in my presentation. As the board has already stated, this is an application to move a current liquor store from a location at 669 Washington to 646 Washington in Easton.
Okay.
If anybody has driven past these areas, they know that the 669 Washington location is not ideal. That it would be much better for everyone, including the community, if we were able to move, if the board so desires, to the new location at 646 Washington, which is a lovely, well-kept strip mall with many other fine businesses. The applicant is looking forward, if the board approves, to move to this new location. We'll be very respectful of the current businesses that are there and wants to integrate and be part of that community and do everything that is possible to make it a better shopping plaza, but being very, very respectful of all other businesses there in the community. The board will be happy to know that this applicant is very mindful that this is a college town and how serious this board takes problems with underage drinking. And the applicant is very diligent about making sure that IDs are checked and that to all possibilities that no underage liquor sales will occur at this establishment. Takes it very seriously, obviously, as this town does, as they should, and make sure that the goals of the town and everything is done properly. Currently, the new space would be, I believe, a little over 3,000 square feet. There is a lease in place that would begin if the application is approved by this board. And at that point, if you have any questions for the applicant,
Just to clarify for the people at home that are listening, so that currently Scott's Fine Wines is in the Carrara's Plaza, which is really the only business that's in there, and I believe that's going to become another entity over there, and so you'll be that we look at with all of our businesses, but particularly stores like yours, is that they're complementary to the other businesses in that mall. So when you bring in foot traffic, they might stop there on their way back from D'Angelo's, bringing dinner home, or some of the other businesses in there. So I think that that's really strengthens that strip mall, and I think it sounds like it's a great idea, great location, good for you, good for them. So
thank you.
Any comments or questions? Starting with you, Jamie.
No, thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation.
You've been at that location a long time. I think it's just going to improve your business. There's a lot more foot traffic there, and hopefully with what goes on across the street, that'll add to your business, and you'll have a nice property to look after. So I think this is fantastic.
I appreciate your interest in remaining in Easton too. So, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it. Feels like you've been here before. I didn't even have to give my speech about the college. But that really is important. And so I'm glad that does get out to the businesses. We want you to be successful. We don't want you coming back here for that. Nobody likes that. So so we wish when we vote on this, we'll wish you the best in your new location. And again, like Selectman Barger said, we appreciate you choosing Easton. Mark is the chair of our Economic Development Council, and anything that we can do to help you be successful, you just let us know. So, Greg, if you'd like to make a motion to approve the application as noted in the packets.
So moved, Barger.
Second, Lynn.
Barger and Lamb, all in favor? Unanimous. Congratulations, and we wish you continued success with your business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next is a discussion and vote contracts for furniture, fixtures and equipment and IT equipment for the Blanche A. Ames Elementary School. And we have PMA consultants here.
Welcome, Walter.
See you.
Walter, you're like a fixture at our meeting.
You don't need to introduce yourself.
Sorry, agenda item.
We gotta give him a plate. Like this.
So if you want to just, you know the drill, just to kind of give us an overview of some of these contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you remember, FF&E and IT is ongoing, in the building. These items are items that were not either not identified or not determined to be necessary at the time that all the FF&E and IT were purchased. I think the last couple times I've, brought one of these up, I've, let you know that there's been stuff rolling in as the staff has been in the building that they've identified as necessary. And that these items are still within the budget that was amended by the select board and the school planning committee. So that additional $900,000 that was amended, included in the FF&E and IT budget. So the first item, EES CCS 01, that was for AV display projector in the cafetorium. That is the large cafetorium. It is a mounted projector that's going to be going in. And this is just for the cost of mounting the projector and the projector itself. 1 second. That cost was, or is, $23,935. It is, I know that seems like a large cost for a projector. It is a big throw. It's about a 75-foot throw from the back of that cafetorium to the stage. So it is a high quality long throw projector. The further you go back, the further the throw is, the bigger the price on those. The second is for an additional desk at the central administration. Originally, when that area was laid out, there were only 2 staff members that were going to be sitting in the welcome area. There are actually 3 staff members there. So we have a temporary solution, which is really not the furniture that fits in with there. But we did grab one from somewhere. But to match the other furniture that was bought as part of the building, that was $3,611. So that piece right there. And then the third piece is EES WCA 08. And that was for the digital display units on the 2nd floor. We originally priced out the monitors for the 1st floor. But because the locations were not shown on the 2nd floor, we never priced them out. So we didn't include them in the first buyout. We should have grabbed them. They were in the corridor elevations. They just weren't on the main layout area. So when we went back, we had locations for all these TVs, and they were intended to have TVs. Had we caught that during the buyout, we would have included those on that. But that was for 6 units on the 2nd floor, $17,067. That includes the mounting hardware, and then the units themselves. So
What size were those?
I believe those are 50 or 55 inch monitors. They're the same units that are on the first floor.
Okay, thank you.
So those are the 3 FF&E and IT related. As an update, and I think it's a little bit variance because it's a day-to-day basis, so I have the most updated. With the approval of those and all the other items we're tracking, which I'll be back again because we do not have the contracts ready, so we didn't want to bring them to the board yet. But with everything that we're currently tracking, we are still having uncommitted of about 15,000 in that budget remaining. So we have, I think, 6 other items that are on here. Some that don't need contracts, some that will. But we're in good shape on those right now. We haven't heard of anything that would be above and beyond that appropriation. If we do, we'll be sure to bring it to the committee, to the school planning committee, and get the appropriate approvals. But that's an update, snapshot on FF&E and IT in the building right now.
Okay, so this is pretty common towards the end of a project like this, as part of the punch list and some of the things that come
Okay.
up. That's why we have a contingency, which we haven't had to go into yet. But if there are some other things like that, that's the safety net for it.
Still have quite a bit of soft cost contingency, which is what we would recommend.
Sure.
That comes out.
Jamie, you want to start with any comments or questions?
I answered my one, so thank you, Walter.
I do have a question on you know, these outstanding items, I completely understand that you build a school like that, and there's items that are outstanding that were missed, or you realize you need after the fact after it's constructed.
Yep.
But I would think that there has to be a date or a time at which it's like, all right, guys, no more. We've hit the wall. You've been here long enough.
Yep.
It's not just like, you know, you can go the remainder of the year and be like, I want this or I want that. It's like, no, it's hard stop, no more.
Yeah,
Is that something that we can look forward to?
it would be probably self-imposed. We could make a recommendation for that.
I kind of would, because it just feels like there's a lot of,
So
like,
we
there's
can,
just a constant stream of, well, we want this, or we want that, and it's like, yeah, I don't want to sound insensitive, but on the other hand, as a fiduciary, it's like,
Yep.
you know, let's.
so we have a contract with the general contractor through April 28th this year. So I'd say the fastest we could do that would be, we really can't close the books
Yeah.
on anything. We could certainly have that discussion with principal superintendent that anything needed.
Yeah.
So we'll bring that up with them, certainly.
I think it's a responsible idea, and I think for them, it's also like, hey, there's a date at which you have to be done too, which is completely fair. So they can turn, you know, I can't see them turning around and being like, oh, that's, you know, not fair. It's like, this
And
is
I think-
really fair.
I think the only thing to say for that is they've only been in that building for
Understood, but
about 20 days.
writing on the wall
Yeah,
type thing.
yeah, set
Yeah.
the message, send the message.
Well, I think the other thing to notice is that, so the school planning committee is still meeting, so these things come to them first, and it's not just the school people on that
Mhm.
board. So these are things that really weren't reasonably anticipated until you could get into the space, so.
Completely understood.
The monitor, the reason that is really important, the one that I'm remembering from our last meeting kind of ties to the school traffic, believe it or not. So I was gonna bring this up, but I'll bring it up in this context.
Yeah.
So there, you know, if you are on social media, you saw that there was a little bit of a blip in the beginning. It was kind of hard with any new change in anything with the schools, right? Or every September when it's the same schools and there's been no
Yeah.
changes. For the first week or few days, there's gonna be some confusion around how to get around. And of course, with a brand new school and a new traffic layout and new streets and roads. So there was some of that, but one of the things that they were doing is that they call the children to let them know, you know, their parents are in the queue and get them up there. Well, that's how they want to be able to do it, is on that big screen, so that, you know, they can say, you know, these 5 kids like line up, get to cone number 1, and they've got a really great system for how they do it. And this television, that's not the only thing it's going to be used for, but that's
Sure.
the thing that I am
Yeah.
thinking of it with it.
Not even questioning what it's used for. I trust it's been vetted in that manner. It's just more of, you know,
And
need a
it's-
part.
Well, I think they're gonna run out of money, so naturally, that's gonna be the stop, right? There's $15,000 left in
Yeah.
it, so if there's something more than that, it's gonna be more of a conversation to
It'll be a
have,
larger
right?
conversation at that point, yeah.
I'm not trying to be sarcastic, and I certainly want to
Totally
acknowledge what you're saying, and I agree with you, but
Yeah, we're happy to have that conversation, and try and work on setting an end date for requests.
Thank you.
anything else? Do you have kids there? You don't?
I don't.
No,
I
you don't.
don't.
And actually, I did the first time. My daughter, we had to go with the walkers, and it was very well done. In fact, give Principal Cedarbaum credit. He actually led them out, and it's so well detailed. You had them know. Actually, I was picking up your niece as well.
Mhm.
So it was so well done because that had to all be coordinated, which, you know, so I was really impressed with the organization today.
And I can say, I know Alicia, Dr. Cabral spoke to this at the school planning committee meeting. Even with the snow today, still 17 minutes from 3:30 to 3:47 was all of those vehicles, whether they were there lined up earlier or not. Even in that snow was 17 minutes from the queue starting for the first children out, and then till the last car that went through, so.
Well,
Right.
let's get back to that, because I do want to talk about that for a second,
Sure.
just because, I mean, I'm sure we get huge viewership at the school planning committee meetings, but I think just to catch the people that might not have seen it. So Craig, do you have any comments or
No,
questions on this?
I just
before we-
agree with what Mark was saying, that I think that, you know, at some point say, okay, you know, we've reached the end.
Yep.
Let's move on.
Yep. So specific to FF&E, I think you're referring to.
Mhm.
Yes. All right, terrific. So let's, so we'll need a motion and a second for these three contracts to be awarded. EES CCS -01, CCS Presentation Systems for the AV Display Projector, ADD COP -01 for Creative Office Pavilion, and EES WCA -08 for Wally Computer Associates for the classroom AV items.
So moved, Barger.
Second, Lamb.
So that's Bodger and Lamb, all in favor? Unanimous. So what I wanted to just mention back that for the traffic queuing, one of the things that was really important that they were trying to get parents to understand is don't get there a half an hour before, because then that puts the queue way down the street and it just makes the whole process slower. So Dr. Cabral was saying that, she was personally going out to people's cars trying to explain that to them. And it's like with anything, it takes a little while, but I want to congratulate the parents that are, listened, trusted it, because it's, it's hard to believe, well, I've been waiting here for 45 minutes. How do you mean it's going to be faster if I get here later? And so they are timing it and making sure that it is working appropriately. And it's, what did you say, 17 minutes?
Yep, from 3:30 to
Mhm.
I looked out the window of the trailer, 3:47, there was no one in the queue, but there were still queues at 2:55.
Yeah.
I want to point out that that applies to every school too.
Right.
So my mother-in-law picks up my kids, and as a mother-in-law is, she's often very worried that she won't be there in time and she'll get there a half hour early. And it's like, no, don't do that. You're just waiting there an extra half hour. So we finally convinced her after all of this to just go when you're supposed to go. And she's like, I got to the school and I just kept driving. The car kept moving and I got up and picked everybody up and left. I was there for like 5 minutes. I was like, yeah, that's how it's designed, actually. So I personally know that it works when you follow those rules.
It's kind of counterintuitive, though. You think if you get there early, you're in line, you get to go. So
Just wait.
So, thank you to all the parents that had patience to go through that. And again, the ones that trusted the system and
Keep trusting.
keep trusting it, because it's going to change again, probably as we do more work in the outside there. And I think that one of the best investments that was done was having a traffic consultant on board from the beginning of this to really, change the traffic flow for the middle school and for the Blanche A. Ames.
And he did visit the school, again, under the request of the principal, the superintendent, principal. And his recommendation was exactly what had already been outlined by the superintendent and the principal. It was make that request to the parents because it will work and it is working. He witnessed it's exactly what everyone saw. So
if I recall, that was one of the first things discussed before the design of the building. It was like, all right, if we put a big structure here,
how's it going?
we need to design the traffic and then design the exits and all that stuff around where the traffic flow will be. Am I right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But if it's not, when you don't follow the plan, sometimes, but even following, even when the plan's not followed, the dismissal is operating correctly. It could just even be more efficient for the people that we're getting there early. Could be less time waiting for them.
So that was a little dotted line off topic, but I thought it was important to talk about that while we're in this conversation. So the next item we have is a discussion and vote for Paul J. Rogan Company change order 01RO for the Blanche Ames Elementary School wastewater treatment plant.
Absolutely. So I just titled this RO so that everyone knew it was change order 1 for the Rogan Company as it relates to the school project. So as of this evening, 87.8% of the way through the contract. That is of the overall contract, not specific to the wastewater. 24.4% of owner contingency will have been expended, and 26.6% of owner contingency. Owner contingency is held in reserve for known risk pending resolution. Change order 01 RO is in the amount of $47,574.41. And it includes 4 PCOs. The first PCO in your packet, I titled it 203, again, to separate from the general contractor of the school. So the PCO number the 200 doesn't really apply, but it is PCO 3 for them. It is for electrical work for the wastewater treatment plant. The electrical work was not included on the drawings. The wastewater treatment plant, the intention was always to or the initial intention was for the project team under the general contractor to have the T&M work for the electrical work done by the filed sub bid from the school. There was no drawings associated. It was just gonna be a T&M scope. I ended up, because they were not able to complete that because of how busy they were with the school, we ended up having the Rogan company use their electrician. So all this T&M work was supervised by the Rogan company, supervised by PMA consultants, tickets signed, compared. So it was $45,000, 132 cents, 132 and 94 cents. PMA had to go back and forth quite a few times with them to make sure that the slips matched the certified payrolls, make sure the slip matched the rates. But that was the first piece of that PCO. The second piece of, first part of that change order, the second piece was for a repair and replacement of a sewer manhole cover in the parking lot of the Oliver Ames High School. This was actually Witten noticed while they were there. So they offered to provide a price to take care of it. It was loose, it was spinning. So they took that apart and for $55,399 replaced that sewer manhole cover. It is all set, it's been taken care of at this point in time. PCO 205 was a transducer that was not originally in one of the tanks that needed to be there, and then another one that needed to be replaced. That was $2,927.18. And then the fourth PCO is a credit of $5,885. This is for a fence that was outlined at the rear of the wastewater treatment plant. There will be a forthcoming additional fence because the unit is not here yet. So we're trying to get the Rogan company closed out. That unit is being procured under the HVAC and electrical contracts, filed sub-bid contracts that are part of the school. So they're going to be gone before that unit gets here. I think we mentioned it was either 32 or I'll have to check back. I think a 32-week lead time on that unit. I think we're about 16 or 18 weeks in. We're quite a bit away from that. But the original fence that was purchased, that scope, we were going to increase the size. We ended up just taking a credit for that scope for $5,885. We'll procure another fence if it's needed. If it's determined it's not needed by either the schools or the facilities, they may not think it's needed. To the back of the building, probably a good to have thing, so no one can really just get into that unit. It's on the ground. It'll be on a concrete pad. But that's what that PCO is for. So those are the 4 PCOs that we have as part of change order 1.
Okay, any questions?
The only one's on electrical.
Yep.
How did you feel that went down? Were you unhappy that wasn't initially
No.
The way proceeded?
No, there was the scope of the wastewater treatment plant kind of increased as we were moving through design. So we never really got to, there was a lot of requests, and then more recommendations came out. We kind of ended up getting recommendations from the wastewater treatment plant operator really late in the game, and to push it off, we never would have got the bid out. So we said, no, we'll take care of this. It's, tracking $50,000 worth of T&M is not difficult. It's, if you think about it, it's an electrician, 8 hours a day, $100 an hour. It's about 2 weeks, 3 weeks worth of work. It's not hard to track. So we're comfortable with it. Everything's operating in there. So he did a good job. Licensed electrician, no issues. So
Thank you.
If I recall, that was your plan. You shared that with us, that was going to be your plan.
Oh, yeah.
A while ago. Yeah.
We
Right.
were actually going to price it, and they were so busy in their
Yes,
office,
all
they
right.
couldn't even price it.
It's coming back.
Yep.
So okay, I recall that being your plan. Now, within the wastewater treatment plant, is everything done?
The only piece that's left are anti-siphon valves, and they were just submitted on last week. They should take a half a day to put in.
Okay, so there'll be another PCO for that.
There'll be another PCO. We actually did just receive on Friday. We've been going through 12 more PCOs from them. We're working through all of those. Once PMA has had time to digest them, review them, respond to them, we'll discuss any that we think are.
I love
legitimate.
closing things out.
Yeah, we're looking to do that too.
You've also
especially-
done a really good job at negotiating some of that stuff that,
Yeah.
so I think
You were,
we all have confidence in
Mhm.
that. But
Completely.
Thank you.
our job is to make sure that we're following this along
Absolutely.
closely so that the public
Yeah,
knows that we're not just rubber stamping it and
Yes.
that,
And we weren't expecting actually any further PCOs to see 12 of them on Friday last week was little surprising, so we'll get our review done and get our responses out to them. So,
All right, terrific. Any other comments or questions? All right, Craig, would you like to make a motion to award fiscal year 22, oops, I'm on the wrong line. Paul J. Rogan Company change order 01 RO for the Blanche A. Ames Elementary for the wastewater treatment plant.
The amount of $47,574.41.
you got it.
So moved, Barger.
Second, Lamb.
Roger and Lim, all in favor? Unanimous, excellent. So thank you so much. It was great to meet at the school last week.
Yes.
It is just incredible. I left a little bit, quickly because I wanted to get home quickly because it had been a long day, and I went out the wrong door and I got locked into the courtyard. So,
That happened to us when we took the tour. We had to go back out. I can't remember, we had to call it was the janitor had to come out and open the door for us to get us in. Yeah.
The fence wasn't open?
it was
Did you-
dark. I
you
couldn't
didn't make
see.
it to the fence, okay.
I was just
I want
like,
everyone to know that fence is open, so you can.
Yeah. I'm sure I would have got there, but there was somebody out there working and,
It was the barbed wire on the fence, you can't get over.
no, there was someone working and he's like, can I help you? Cause I clearly looked lost and it was embarrassing. So I was like, no, just checking it out. And I'm like, yeah, I need to get back in the building.
You gotta get out.
So it's
Checking the
a
security
big
around
building.
there.
But they said that the kids, like on day 2, everyone knew where they were going. So I guess, remember that show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Are You Smarter Than a Preschooler? Because these kids are finding their way around, no problem. So next time I go back, I'll make sure I know where I am. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here, Walter.
Thanks, Walter. Yeah. Have a good night.
All right. Chief, you've been waiting very patiently. Come on up.
All right.
So next we have a discussion and vote for EFD 2023-02. That's with CNF Specialty Incorporated for firefighter turnout gear contract. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. So as part of the annual town meeting, there was an article to approve as part of capital, the purchase of firefighter turnout gear, in this case, 37 sets, to outfit the fire department. There's a couple pieces that we're moving along with this to facilitate it. One was aligning the entire department on the same replacement cycle. So we all have the same gear of the same spec. It makes tracking for exposure purposes, cancer, things like that much easier. The other piece was that we the NFPA standard for our fire gear that we wear in fires has a life expectancy of 10 years. After 10 years, it's not certified anymore by that standard. So we're on a rotation plan now where it will spend 5 years as their frontline gear, and then 5 years as a backup year, so we get the full 10 years out of it. And what that means also is that the firefighters have the ability now to, especially once this gear comes in, if we have a fire or a situation where we have to decontaminate our gear, they have another set of gear they can wear while the other set's decontaminated. Currently, we're just about there where everybody has a second set, but some of them are much older. And we'll get to the point where we'll be fully compliant with the 10-year rule after this is completed. It's been a big shift over the last 5 to 8, 10 years to get 2 sets of gear for a firefighter, where decontamination became a thing. That's been the real big push with our cancer prevention. Before you kind of just had your fire gear, and I was guilty of it 2 years ago, where it was a mark of pride to have the dirty helmet, the dirty gear, and you looked like you're a firefighter with a lot of experience. And we were trying to change that conversation so that we take pride in having it clean, having the trucks clean, and try to keep ourselves healthy, because our own gear is often what gets us sick. And then another bonus that came out of this process was PFAS, as we're all well aware of PFAS. The initial hope was that the industry would be at a point where we can have no PFAS in our gear. But because our current gear does have PFAS in most all of it. But we are very lucky that the technology has reached a point where only one non-skin contact layer will have a low amount, and all the other layers will not have PFAS. So we're at a low PFAS level with this new gear. And we're hopeful that the industry regulations and the technology with the companies will merge and discuss so that they can get that last layer free. But there has to be some changes in the regulations on how the fire gear is made and certified to allow that to happen. So that's the background story behind the fire gear, and take any questions on it.
Jamie?
No questions. Thank you, Chief.
questions, more conversation. When was the last time that they got new gear?
So, prior to aligning everybody now, it's been done kind of piecemeal.
Okay,
as
so
some
what's the
gear
oldest
expired.
piece that you have?
Probably 10 years.
Yeah.
We've really pushed hard to give everything over 10 years, but we have some gear that's being run frontline that's much older. So this will allow us to have brand new gear up front. And the nice part is kind of like rotating a vehicle down the line from the highest miles to like retirement and further retirement. The gear, when it goes to the backup gear, is only used after a situation of fire or decontamination type event. So it doesn't get the wear and tear. So which means you can get that last 5 years out of it in a good way. We're fortunate to be in that position. A lot of departments around here are, but there are other departments in other parts of the country, especially, that can't afford it. And they have one set of gear and they have to run it for 10 years. And when it gets dirty, they still have to wear it.
Yeah.
And, they don't get to clean it until after they go home, maybe. And so we're very fortunate, and with your support and the support of the town, we're able to do things like this.
How many guys are reluctant to wear not broken in stuff? I know it's not only a mark of pride, but it's nobody wants to, they get attached to their equipment.
I mean, being in the fire service and around it my whole life, I have a brand new coat when I came here.
Did you drag it through the mud a few times?
Well,
it looks like
recently went up to one of the firefighters at the fire academy, getting trained. He's about to graduate in February. And I went to visit, I was with the Brockton Fire Academy, but it was up in Stowe. And I went on last Saturday and 2 Saturdays ago and went up, and the chief there allowed me to observe from inside, which means I get a gear on and put an air pack on, which for me, that's like Christmas, because I don't get to do that very often. I put a pack on and go inside. But it was pointed out how clean and unused my gear looks.
You made fun of a lot?
And the temptation to rub against the wall.
Yeah.
But you don't but their temptation is there, to your point, or a bit of levity around it.
When you're in construction, you get a brand new hard hat. First thing you do is you throw it around and you drag it through the mud, because you don't want to be the guy on site with the brand new everything. Is like, who's the rookie guy here?
There's jokes in fire service, and probably every joke probably comes from some truth, where firefighters will put their helmets in an oven to make them look crispier.
Please don't do that.
No, we don't do it.
Yeah, I know.
You're right. It's that point. Like those are the things that people think about, and they want to look like the typical,
not the rookie
guy, right? The look.
But no, I think this is great. You might be the only one.
The big firefighter mustache.
You say that now.
Craig?
I did, the question, you answered part of my question with regards to the PFAS. That's a concern that I know the community has, and I know the firefighters have. So this is an internal fiber that does not touch the skin. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, so the moisture barrier is the last piece that has a trace amount, but it's still an amount in it. There's multiple layers: thermal barrier, the moisture barrier, and the inner layer. And it's the remove the PFAS from that layer right now. The issue with it revolves around it has to meet certain standards of how it performs in a fire condition. And they need those chemicals to make it perform that way. And the technology or the regulations have to align to get that out. The European model is a little different, and they're able to do their regulations a little different. So they're able to do their 5 year differently. So I think my hope is when the 5 years for our next set comes up, that we're at a point where we can have it fully out of that layer too. But in the end, we are going to reduce the amount of PFAS, and ultimately keeping the good turnout gear on their front line is important as well. So we're trying to grab both at the same time here. We're doing making some improvements.
Okay, thank you.
So when they do the decontamination, I know that was an issue in this station being so old, and that's going to be one of the bonuses should the community support a new station, is the decontamination system is a little bit different. So it's really important to wash that equipment off after it's been used. The PFAS layer is not going to be wet and run into the water, or
no, it's not. It doesn't.
So it's encapsulated in the jacket.
It doesn't like leach out, if you will.
Great.
But I think it's important that we're spending a lot of conversation about keeping this gear clean, decontaminated, and to your point about the potential going forward with fire stations, we just take the clean gear and put it back in the apparatus bay with the diesel trucks and all their fumes, and that nothing is isolated, and that's important. Like it should be decontaminated in a confined area. So we don't spread anything that comes off them, and then it should go get put into a confined area with negative pressure, so that any residual chemicals or off gassing gets sucked out because the doors are sealed and it pulls a slight vacuum out of the room and it ventilates out, instead of it leaching back into living areas and diffusing back through. So great point on that. And
Yeah, I think it's important to note that because, you know, we look at some of the physical structural reasons of why we need the new building, but I think that we talk about the safety of our community and response times and all that. But I just wanted to kind of flag that the safety of our staff, our firefighting team, it's really important. These little nuances that I never knew about until I heard you talk about them. But I hope the public will see the value in that, you know, just as a contributing value to looking at this new complex.
It is. It's a holistic approach to decontamination. I mean, cancer is rapidly becoming, and I'll probably say this 100 more times over the next 6-8 months, probably the rest of my career. It's rapidly approaching the leading cause of death of firefighters. It's not fighting a fire. It used to be heart attacks, vehicle accidents, but cancer is rapidly becoming a problem. And it is a problem. We're just, I think, identifying it more. And our really two things have happened to us. One, buildings are built with more carcinogens and they're tighter and they're hotter. So we get exposed to it more. And then our gear is really good at holding it in for us because it's designed to do that. It's designed to be like a really robust snowsuit, if you will, and hold everything in. And that's what we put on. August, it doesn't matter. And then we're in that heat, sweating, whether it's winter or summer, you sweat in a fire, your pores open up. And it just goes right into you. So it's a big problem, and we're making the right steps, and hope we continue to do so.
Well, I think that's
I want
great.
to thank you for bringing it up because being in manufacturing for so long, we spend so much time, and these folks might spend 8 to 12 hours in the manufacturing process in an environment that we want them to go home in as good, if not better condition than they arrived. Right, our firefighters are there much longer periods of time, and same with our police officers, especially they're working overtime. So those environments, make sure the firehouse, make sure the police station are places that would be up to code. What I would want my production folks to be exposed to. Same thing, what I want my firefighters and my police officers exposed to. So thanks for bringing that up in the buildings and what we're doing in this town and the progressive and thanks to everybody in the community that is looking at this the way we are, in a very forward-leaning way and trying to mitigate the issues that are becoming very prevalent in cancer.
Yep. And it seems like there's been a lot more fires all of a sudden. I don't know whether it's just more on the news, not specifically in Easton, but even in Easton this year. You know, usually I think of the emergency response as more of the majority of the work, but it just seems like there has been a lot more incidents. So
yeah, it's difficult to say the causes as well. I mean, it kind of ebbs and flows a little bit. You know, back in 34 years ago, you could say that like at-home fire safety was a problem, but I think with our SAFE program and the firefighters in the schools have made a dramatic effect on that. But you do see those ebbs and flows, and it's sometimes it's just unfortunate situations that happen, and there's not really a pattern. But you know, I think one thing in public, it's hard to teach and educate the amount of toxic things we're exposed to in a fire all at once. There's a lot of YouTube videos of firefighting and watching it bank down. If anybody wants to see the kind of smoke we have to endure, you could probably search videos like flashover. Flashover is a term you could search. YouTube videos of fire flashovers. And that kind of smoke, at that point, we're getting out of the building because it's very dangerous. But that smoke is what it looks like inside. It's not always the you see on TV where everybody can see when they're looking around and they're talking to each other. It's not like that. It's completely black. It's dark. You're on your hands and knees crawling around. So if you're looking to see what kind of smoke I'm talking about is causing these problems, you can YouTube videos like that.
thank you. So this purchase is funded from a 2022 annual town meeting approval and a state awarded grant, and the total contract amount is $124,553.10. So our vote is to award the contract to CNS Specialty for the firefighter turnout gear. So would you like to make a
So
motion?
moved, Barger.
Second, Lamb.
Barger and Lamb, all in favor? Unanimous. Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me come.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Good to see you again.
Thank you, Chief. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, we are moving along. So number 9, the discussion and vote for amendment number 1 for memorandum of understanding with Sawmill Village LLC. Michael, are you gonna lead that?
Yeah, so the board will call in March of 2021, you executed an MOU with Sawmill LLC as part of the redevelopment of parcels on Foundry Street. That fell under the compact neighborhood zone developed by the planning board and approved by the town meeting. The MOU affirms certain structure commitments that were conditioned by the planning board, specifically intersection improvements, including the signalization of Quanticket and Foundry, as well as mitigation for design funds to advance the Foundry Street tip project, which is very similar to what we did on Depot Street. So the pedestrian access, so sidewalks, signalization, intersection improvements. At the time of the March 2021 MOU, permitting was still underway. The developer has gone through that process, peer review, and completed it in early winter of 2022. Since that time, the cost of construction, site development, and financing have all escalated pretty appreciably, and the applicant has requested the board consider an amendment to the design fund mitigation agreement as attached in the packet in light of these economic factors. Jim, I think it's important to be very explicit that the proposed amendment does not change any of the key aspects of the MOU. So the financial support for the design of the tip or the intersection improvements, it's simply just a per unit mitigation amount. But it does consolidate into a lump sum payment due within 90 days of the amendment execution, where previously, instead of lump sum, you receive payment for each unit as it was occupied. So it would be over the course of time as opposed to all upfront.
So getting that payment in a lump sum actually advances the project for the traffic light.
Correct.
Because we can get that funded quicker to get the design done quicker and move that project along and get that into the TIP, which is the Transportation Improvement Program, to get the street funded.
That's we really think it's a development, a benefit to everyone.
Yeah.
For that reason, for our perspective.
I'd like to add to that too. I think so. It goes from $380,000 to $280,000, but it's received all at once. So that $100,000 that's lost, I actually think will be gained because you're receiving a lump sum, so you're able to start early, and the escalating cost will surpass $100,000, I believe, because of the magnitude of the project. So $100,000 as a fraction or as a percentage is so much smaller that I do think that being able to start it a year or two in advance will save over $100,000. So I'm okay with giving up the $100,000 now to receive the lump sum to actually spend less than. You understand what I'm saying? I'm having this hard time saying it, but I think this is a win-win actually.
Absolutely. So for those reasons, we think it's a good faith offer. We recommend you approve it. And if you wish to do so, there's a specific motion in the TA notes to effectuate it.
Jamie, you have any?
And I've read through it thoroughly, so thank you. Thanks.
Fred?
Yeah, I've read through it too. Full support of that.
Well, I think that one of the things that's important that we try to demonstrate, whether it's through housing or through other economic development incentives, is to be proactive and work with the partner and in ways that make this stuff happen better and faster for our community. So I appreciate everybody that worked on this to make this happen, for the developer to agree to that, and for Connor to be able to come up with the idea to structure it this way. I think it's a win-win. So Craig, if you want to make the motion.
Motion to approve the proposed MOU amendment and authorize Dottie Polgenetti as chair to execute on behalf of the town, with the contingency that said approval and execution is conditioned upon the applicant seeking and receiving any associated approvals from the planning and zoning board relating to the special permit for the project.
Second, Lamb.
So that's Bodger and Lamb. All in favor? Unanimous. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Number 10, acceptance of resignation. Sharon O'Leary from the Tricentennial Committee. Her term has an expiration of June 30th, 2023, which is coming up. We want to thank Sharon for her time on the Tricentennial Committee. It wasn't very long because the committee just started. So we will vote to accept her resignation with regret. And then also we'll re-advertise that position. in the volunteer section of our website. If you look on the front page, lower left, you'll see a blue navigation bar that says volunteer. Click on that. It will give you a list of all the volunteer opportunities that we have and an application to apply for this upcoming one and anything else we have open. So this will be a motion, a second, and then a roll call vote.
So moved, Roger.
Second, Lamb.
Bodger and Lamb. We'll start with you, Jamie.
Yep, Stebbins O'Leary.
Lamb, O'Leary.
Full Janetti O'Leary.
Barger, O'Leary.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we thank Sharon for her time on that, serving on that board. The next is a vote to open the warrant for annual town meeting for May 15th, 2023. It's that time again. It feels like we just did this.
Yeah, believe it or not, it's always a town meeting time. So in accordance with the town charter, annual town meeting will take place at 7 p.m. on the third Monday of May, which this year is May 15th. So we're proposing the board vote to open the warrant for annual town meeting with a closing date of Tuesday, February 21st, 2023 at 4:30 for the submission of warrant articles. And as a practice, we'll get a memo out to department heads and chairs following the vote to do that.
Okay, terrific. Any comments or questions?
It's traditional, do it every time, we'll be here.
All right.
I move to open the warrant for the annual town meeting of May 15th, 2023.
Second, Lamb.
So that's Bodger and Lamb. All in favor? Unanimous. Excellent. Next, town administrator update for municipal facilities replacement.
So I don't have anything particularly new to add this week. I do just want to, for the public's benefit, KVA and PMA did present a presentation at your last meeting with the final draft of the feasibility report. If you go to our webpage at easton.ma.us/MBC, it's a direct link to that project page. And we do put up the videos of the presentation as well as the presentation slide, and it's up there now. So just encourage people to visit that. If they weren't able to watch it, to stay engaged in the processes at least.
Okay, terrific. Did you want to add anything, Jamie, from being on that committee or?
No, and again, given they were just, I guess it felt like last week, but I guess it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So no, thank you. So.
Terrific. All right. And next, the acceptance of the minutes of January 9th.
So moved, Barger.
Second, Lamb.
Bodger and Lamb, all in favor? Unanimous. Next, town administrator notes or assistant town administrator notes?
Nothing to say.
All right, select board notes. Jamie, anything?
I just want to thank Michael for stepping in and doing a fantastic job, given the PFAS presentation at MMA on Friday, which I was able to attend along with Dottie and David Field. So fantastic job. I think you really gave that audience, and if there had been it was a pretty full room, but a lot of good information and get people thinking in a proactive way that our town's been obviously thinking for a long time now. So thank you very much. You did a great job.
Second that.
Awesome.
I'll put that.
Yeah, so Jamie and Michael and I went to the MMA this weekend, the annual meeting. It hasn't been in person in 3 years. It was really great. The governor was there outlining some of her plans moving forward. The lieutenant governor, US senators, a lot of people, a lot of ideas, a lot of great workshops. And it was a lot of fun networking and connecting with people that we work with. I remember I was just telling a story, Mark, the first time you went to the new select board meeting held by the MMA, and it's really eye-opening to see what is Easton doing, what are other communities doing, what are other committees facing. We share a lot of the same struggles, but some communities have more struggles in their interpersonal relationships with management and each other. So I'm very happy that Easton is doing very well in that manner, and being able to see some of the things that we've achieved over the last year. Thinking that everybody has. So I guess that's it for me. I would just say that if people want to read the town crier, that's the best place to go to find out information about what's happening in the town. If you're not already subscribed, go to the front of our website down towards the bottom, and you'll see a button to subscribe to the town crier, where you'll find all the great information. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Barger.
Second, Lamb.
Bodger and Lamb, all in favor? Unanimous. Great. See you, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. And thanks, ECAP, for broadcasting.